Sunday night, we saw a great game between the Warriors and the Lakers. Obviously, no LeBron for the Lakers, but they still pulled out a win. Anthony Davis had a huge game. Shout out to him. But it got me thinking, BJ, and I want to get your expert opinion on this. It really made me think. Why are the Golden State Warriors so much better at home than they are on the road? Now, this is expected from a lot of teams, but a championship caliber team, let's just put it into context. The Warriors are 27-7 at home and 7-24 on the road. That means when they're at home, they're tied for the second most home wins in the NBA alongside the Milwaukee Bucks. But when they're on the road, they're tied for the third fewest road wins. They're tied with your Detroit Pistons. So, speaking of the Pistons, you see this a lot with young teams. You see this a lot with rebuilding teams. They're going to be good at home, and then on the road, they're going to be shaky. But why is it that the Golden State Warriors, a team that is the reigning champions and trying to contend for the championship, why are they so much better when they're on the road? When they're at home, sorry. It's got me tripping. It's 3 a.m. Why are they so much better at home?
Well, the first thing, Mo, is everything, as you know, starts on the defensive end. By their own admission, they've been very inconsistent on the defensive end.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Traditionally, your team, especially your bench, plays better at home than it does on the road. So these young players that they've been playing, that they've implemented into this year's team, talking about Kuminga and DiVincenzo and Moody and all of these guys, Lamb and all of these guys, they play better at home. That's the first thing. And then when they go on the road, it's a different brand of basketball. You go, well, what does that mean? If you're going to be a good team, you have to play with much more discipline on the road than you do at home, because you feed off the energy of the home. They're feeling good. Mo's feeling good. They're saying, let's go, Mo. Mo, he's going to have some heat checks at home. But then when he goes on the road and they start booing him, you never know how a player is going to respond. Okay. And the other team now has that, momentum. So when you watch this team defensively, they've been, by their own admission and by their standards for sure, they've been very inconsistent. Mm-hmm. And that's why they're so bad on the road. Okay. Mm-hmm. They just can't stop anybody. And then when you start putting in these young players, tonight, for instance, when they played the LA Lakers, you saw Andre Iguodala. He's starting now to ramp it up to try to give them some consistency on the defensive end, even though he's not an offensive player, especially at this stage of his career. But defensively, they were much better. They had a chance to win that game against the Lakers here tonight. So That's why you're seeing that. However, they still have this hope that they can improve. And more importantly, they have experience on their side. It's not like they're going to panic, especially as long as their big three is intact.
As a role player in the NBA, how long does it take you to get that comfortability with playing on the road? Because, guys like Kuminga and Moody, they were on a team that went to the finals and won, picking up major wins on the road throughout their playoff run. So at what point does it click for a role player and they can start playing with that comfortability in road games rather than, only really flourishing when they're at home? Because I thought DiVincenzo was fantastic tonight. He's like the perfect fit for this Warriors team. So maybe the younger guys, when will that click for them? Or is this just something that role players will experience throughout their entire career?
Well, Mo, like when you come into this league, I like to say, there are like moments when you have a chance to become a professional, right? Sometimes players will be a professional from day one. Some guys will just, like for instance, a Shane Battier, for instance, when he came into this league, he was just a pro in the day one. Sometimes, it takes a half a year for some guys where it'll just click for them. It'll just click, like, one of your favorite players, Jason Tatum, it just clicked. You just saw it early and, it just clicked for him really early. Some guys, it'll take 2, 3, 4 years before it happens. You take a, you'll take a guy, like, for instance, Emmanuel Quickley. All of a sudden now, Yeah, all of a sudden now you're seeing him beginning to be consistent and play. Julius Randle was another guy to me. Well, it just took him a few years, a couple of teams, and all of a sudden now he's playing otherworldly right now. I mean, the shots he's making now, you're seeing, you go, wow, I didn't know he was going to be this. Sometimes, Mo, it never happens for you. Okay. Mm-hmm. We don't want to name those guys. Sometimes, so you just never know. You would hope, Mo,
when
did
it click
watching,
for you? When you came into the league, when did it click for you that getting into the routine of playing a road game?
Mo, it clicked for me. I remember the first big road trip I had. It was like a 2-week road trip. And suddenly I realized on this road trip, if I was going to have a chance to play in this league and be a professional in this league, I was going to have to play and learn how to play on the road. It was like very obvious to me that how you play and how coaches coach on the road is different than how players play and how coaches coach at home. Mm-hmm. Coaches tend to stick with their starters or the people that they trust for longer periods of time on the road. At home, there's a little, the positive energy, even though as a player, you don't really hear the crowd, you could feel the energy that's in the arena. And you tend to be a little bit more aggressive, in my opinion, at home than you do on the road.
Okay.
As my career went on, after like 3 or 4 years, I actually like to play on the road better than at home.
I like hearing the other team, their crowd goes silent. Hey, that's better than your home fans cheering. You want to hear the opposition silent.
Exactly. So after about 2 or 3 years, I really began to enjoy playing on the road because it was much more mentally challenging for me. The game was more strategic on the road. You have to play with a lot more discipline on the road. The thing that allows you to play well on the road is when you're making shots. Mm-hmm. But also what allows you to stay in a game on the road is playing great defense. And I love the art of mastering or managing time and score. Like if there's one thing that I love more than anything in the game, it's the game within the game when you're managing time and score. You don't have to score to manage the game. And as a guard, I love to do that because that gave you a chance to win. And then if your team is making shots, then, more times than not, you're going to win that game. So that was always fun for me. And it's fun for me to watch other players who do the same and master that art as well.
So my question to you is, do you think the Warriors will be able to snap out of this when the playoff hits? Because we all know you have to be able to win on the road to win a playoff series. So do you believe, because they're not looking like they're going to have home court advantage, do you believe that this is just a regular season thing, or is this something that could trouble them as we progress into the postseason if they make it there?
Where normally, Mo, they're about, when I look at the game and I just can't help it. Like I try, Mo, to be a fan. I really do. But I can't help myself with look at the strategy of the game. Okay. So let's just pick one of the most highly used or high usage play in the NBA, which is the screen roll. All right. The screen roll, there's 5 ways that you can defend the screen roll. Okay. You can switch it. You can blue it, push it down, ice it, as teams call it. You can jam it, meaning you jam the screener and the guy goes under and collects him on the other side. Okay. You can, you can go 2-man removed, or, you go under both guys.
Yep.
You can trap it.
Yep.
Okay. And when I say 2-man remove, you can also, Mo, you can show and recover. Okay.
Yep.
So there's like 5 ways, right, that you can do it. Okay. Yep. So we went over like 5 or 6, but there's 5 traditional ways. Okay. When you have those ways to just do screen roll, just think about that, Mo. Every time you see a screen roll, you have to make in your mind or figure out how you're going to screen this roll and the personnel. So how you're going to guard screen roll with Jrue Holiday and Giannis may be different than Sabonis and Fox, which may be different than, let's say
Yeah, like
Anthony Edwards and Karl Anthony Towns.
A very extreme example is if you're guarding a Steph Curry screen roll and he's got the ball in his hands,
Okay,
you're going to guard that very differently to a Russell Westbrook who's not going to be pulling up from the logo.
Okay, so now based on your personnel, Mo, you got to figure out what your team can and can't do. Okay, that's key. The Warriors know what to do.
Mm-hmm.
There's no doubt in my mind that Draymond, Steph Curry, and Klay Thompson know what to do. Kevon Looney, he knows what to do. What I don't know is on a consistent basis what the other guys are going to do.
Mm-hmm.
And that's been their problem. So consistently, we don't know what this team can do day in and day out. But
so
what we
it's
do
not
know,
a road and home thing, then it's just the consistency and having everyone healthy and getting the reps.
Well, it's not even getting everyone healthy. Every year is different. Every year is different. So for instance, if you watch the Warriors, this is why I'm a huge fan of Steph Curry. If you watch the Warriors switch for the most part.
Mm-hmm.
They play Draymond Green, which is small ball, which allows them to switch and defend everything on the perimeter, which is a huge bonus for them. However, teams have started doing something against Steph Curry. So if you watch Steph Curry, he jams, meaning he never or very rarely does he switch on a screen roll. Why?
No.
Because they know that other teams are going to target him. Now, Draymond Green is capable of orchestrating that because what Draymond does exceptionally well is he can anchor a defense, even though he's not a rim protector. So if you watch them over the last 2 or 3 games, like you watched them today, they chose to put Draymond on Vanderbilt and Draymond just roamed around.
Because Vanderbilt's not a shooting threat.
Just like he did the other night versus Russell Westbrook, which was something totally new that they implemented over the last 2 games. But if you watch Steph Curry, with the counter to that was beautiful was they always put Vanderbilt in their dunker spot so that if Draymond did help, Vanderbilt was always in position. Dunk. There you go. So when you see these things, you go, man, we don't talk about them. But to me, that's what makes the game great because you see these coaches, even though they don't get credit, they make these adjustments because Russell Westbrook, as a point guard or lead guard, in the case for the Clippers, he's not capable of getting in the dunker spot. So it worked beautifully versus the Clippers. But then tonight, you could see the problems that can happen.
So a lot of it depends on the matchups. A lot of it depends on the matchups.
Mo, as I tell you all the time, the playoffs it's all about matchups. It's not about just saying who can defend who. It's all about matchups. That's what the game is about.